My name is Chris Steele, and on behalf of Rich Dad Coaching, I want to take a minute to applaud you for taking a step towards increasing your financial education by joining us today. I want to welcome you to our annual predictions event. This event is often our biggest event of the year, and it's designed to help you look critically at opportunities and challenges that investors should be aware of in the coming year and beyond. So without any further delay, let's begin the event.
Hello, hello, hello. This is Robert Kiyosaki, and it's one of our more popular annual events. It's called Predictions as to what is happening, and I'm here with great friends, but also rich dad advisors. We've made each other very, very rich, and we're very excited about the future. So this is Ken McElroy. Kenny has 3 books out that are essential for all real estate investors: The ABCs of Real Estate Investing, ABCs of Property Management, and I think that's the most important book, right? Because property management is the key, because it's a business, to real estate. And his third book is The Advanced Guide. This is one of the more technical things he does to that the average guy doesn't know about and how to finance real estate. But also here is Andy Tanner, and his book is called 401 Chaos, but also Stock Market Cash Flow. Because as you know, from the rich dad point of view, is that investing in a 401k could be the most stupid thing you can do. But if you have no financial education, I guess it's better than nothing, right? I suppose. So, Kenny, we're going to talk about predictions and all this, but for the viewers who may not know who you are, would you please give me a background and what you do every single day when you're in real estate?
From Seattle, Washington, I have 2 boys, and Kyle and Kate, they're 19 and 16. One's in university and one's still in high school. And I started up in Seattle. I bought a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condominium with my own money. Then I was quickly out of money after just buying a few. So I had to learn how to raise capital. I was in the property management business, so I understood the operations. And then it took about 10 years before I started buying my own property. So we own almost 10,000 units, about very close to $1 billion worth of real estate. We have 350 employees based here locally in Scottsdale. So every single day, all I do is look at deals, apartments, commercial, self-storage, retail, and so it's all primarily commercial.
So Kenny and I have been friends with Kim for about 15 years now, right?
Yeah.
And I remember when that was Edgewood in Tucson, Kenny came back and explained how we get infinite returns using debt. And there was, I guess, a breakthrough in paradigm on how we look at real estate. So since then, Kim and I had made so much money with Kenny. Like a few weeks ago, he called me up and said, "Hey, I have another $1 million for you." And I said, "What am I going to do with the money?" You know what I mean? Kenny is the magician at making a lot of money. And if Tom Wheelwet were here, our tax guy, we pay no tax on it. So that's kind of what makes Rich Dad a little bit different. We're not into real estate. We're into financial education using the different disciplines of investing. So Andy is our expert on paper assets, and give us a little about your background, but more importantly, what do you think of the 401k?
Well, I don't like 401ks, we know that. My background is very, very simple. It's very, very basic. I went to school like many people, was told to get good grades and get a job. I didn't do either of those things. And went to play basketball. When that was over, I had a choice to make. Do I go out and hunt for a job or remain a student? So that's what I've done, is remain a student of all types of financial education, specifically, as Robert said, paper assets. What do I do every day? We look at the markets every single day. I set aside some time to learn. I study every single day, and I coach my kids' basketball team every single day.
How old are your boys?
They're 9 and 11, and we're a little too serious about that, but with their basketball. We have a good time. But, Robert mentioned the 401k. It's a very big passion of mine, because I don't believe that success is found by just throwing your money out in the stock market, diversifying, hoping winners out and losers. I don't think that's what great investors like Warren Buffett or George Soros do. So we approach the stock market in a very different way than most people.
but like the stock market cash flow.
That's right.
And what happens for the average person is the cash is flowing out of their pockets into Wall Street, which may never come back again. And so, like the 401k and IRAs and all these other things, and Roth IRAs, it's when you pick up your paycheck, it's like a tax. A 401k is like a tax. Where'd this money go? Well, that money went out of your pocket before you got it, straight to Wall Street. And when I was a kid in the 60s, investing in the stock market was considered taboo. Professional advisors did not recommend the stock market because it was too risky. So the reason the 401k is this to me is because when I entered the workforce, somebody gave me a 401k at Xerox. And I went, what the hell is this? And I looked at my paycheck, and the money was going to some mutual funds I didn't even know about. I'm going, this is ridiculous, because I knew better. Unfortunately, today, many young people believe, oh, my future is set because I have a 401k, when really it's Wall Street picking your pocket, from my point of view.
Yeah, you're right. The cash flow goes to them in the form of fees, and there's a poor tax deferred situation. But, in reality, it's not based on cash flow. It's based on trying to accumulate a net worth, and that's really not how the old pensions work. So it should be a cash flow issue, and they're taking that away.
And you even mentioned Buffett. He was a stock guy, but he's more today what you do. And also he's shifting his money into what I call tangible or real or assets that last, which is why he bought Burlington.
Buys a lot of businesses.
Yeah, he buys real assets, not fake assets. So anyway, so it's a long way of going about to say for those who have never seen us before or heard about us, the Rich Dad Company stands for financial education. If you have no financial education, I recommend you save money, invest in a 401k, buy a house, and invest in the stock market. But I don't think that that's going to last much longer, so that's why we do things differently here. But what we do takes financial education. To do what Kenny does, Kenny is the maestro. I don't know how you make money out of what you do, but it's magical. And what Andy does, I call Andy up and said, Andy, I got this, and then he'll walk me through the steps, because when a stock is coming down, I'm actually making more money, right?
Yes, you are.
So I love crashes. So that's kind of our story right here. This is my latest book. It's called Why the Rich Are Getting Richer. And this is your guys, this is the advisor's book. What's this book about, more important than mine?
Well, it's an accumulation of what all are the advisors, what they believe is one of the most important things. Mine personally is about OPM, other people's money, which I talk about, which is debt, which is really your money. It's money that you put in the bank, and then I borrow it to buy assets. So, about what you write about.
Well, it's an entrepreneur's team. That's the thing that's more important than money, having a good team around you. And I talk a little bit about what people can study. I think Robert and I were speaking off camera about how people throw their money into things without study, and they think they can be wealthy. And I think that's a myth. So I speak a little bit about what are the topics that a person can learn about and study if they really want to start caring about their investments.
So anyway, the reason these two books are here is to do what I do here, Why the Rich Are Getting Richer, what real financial education is. I cannot do what I do without my team. You cannot do this on your own. So that's why these two books come out simultaneously. They go hand in hand. Rich Dad, Poor Dad was elementary school, and this book is graduate school. So for those who really want to get smarter, these two books are just outlined now. So getting on to the future, what's going to come up here, the reason this chart is here is because in reality, the Rich Dad Company really started on this date here, or more for 1972. But what happened on this date was President Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard. So in 1972, here, I was flying off an aircraft carrier in Vietnam, as a Marine pilot, and my rich dad sent me a letter by snail mail. It took a long time to get to me on board the ship. But it said, watch out, Nixon just took the dollar off the gold standard. He says, the world's going to change. I didn't know what he was talking about. So I get this letter, so it was right here, and this is what's happened since Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard. But the reason this date is so important is because it affected the whole rich dad philosophy. For those who have read Rich Dad Poor Dad, we talk about savers or losers. The reason savers or losers is after this, they can print money. And they don't just print $1. You know, today, for every dollar we may have $1 million printed. That's how much your money is worth less and less and less. Because on this date, money stopped being money. And they can print it. Why work and save for it? And what Kenny will tell you, it became debt. The US dollar is now debt. All currencies are now debt. And then the experts tell you get out of debt. And what we say in here is we use debt, right? Yep. How much debt do you think you're carrying right now?
Probably around 600 million-ish, somewhere in there.
So if you know how to use debt, debt can make you so much richer. And that's the Rich Dad Company. That's people say, live debt free. Do you believe that?
No, no, you should be using debt to make money. Yeah, because you could borrow at a lot less than inflation. So why wouldn't you borrow somebody else's money and hedge, how quickly yours is depreciating?
So we don't work for money. We use debt. And then what happened right around here is where Andy comes in, 1974. What happened there?
Well, that's ERISA, the Employment the Employment Retirement Income Security Act, or whatever it's called, ERISA, and that created a lot of problems with retirement. There was an entity nestled in that legislation called the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation, which ironically is going bankrupt now. Right. And so that created some enmity between corporations and unions. And then a couple years later, in 1978, you get the 401k.
Yeah, so this led to the 401k, and everything started to come apart. And yet, I hear people say, "Oh, I have a 401k, I'm safe." I go, "You got to be kidding me!" Because it's about to come down. So that's why we have the Rich Dad Company, and it's up to you. If you really don't want to study, you don't care about your financial education, then save money, but you'll probably go broke. You put in a 401k, you'll probably go broke. And you can buy a house because you think it's an asset. Just people already gone broke. So that's why the Rich Dad Company is different. The reason this day is important, this is when it first started to come apart, was the 87 stock market crash. It dropped 20% or something like this. Then in 1998, just in the year 2000, there was another crash here. This was a big one. And then there was 2008, and now we're in 2017. So if you look at the trend here, 10 years, 10 years, 10 years. The problem is, and what we're talking about, and why the Rich Dad Company was founded, I wrote a book called Rich Dad's Prophecy, and I said it will start coming down like this. Because Andy will tell you, right, it goes up slowly, but comes down at high speed. Very quick. So what we're going to be talking about is, hopefully this will not happen, but we're prepared for it. And this is another thing too, if this is a crash, and this is a crash, and this is a crash, there's a different word for that, it's called a collapse. And life as we know it may end at that point. So a lot of people say, well, don't tell me about this and all this, and what makes you think it's going to happen. But anything, since you're the stock market, this is the stock, this is the Dow, what do you think the possibilities of that are?
Well, it's definitely, it's always a possibility. It's not really a question of if. For most people that know, a crash is always a question of when. It's always going to happen. And the analogy I would use is like an avalanche. I can see all the snow, and you see building and building and building. You might not be able to know which snowflake is going to hit it and make it go, but there's certainly things we can see offshore, hurricanes, if you will, that we can see out there brewing. When they hit, how they hit, that's a little harder to pin down. But as you said, to prepare is not a bad thing. Hopefully it doesn't happen, but I think a person would be foolish not to look at what is out there and look at reality.
Right, we've had too many events like Puerto Rico getting wiped out, or hurricane in Houston. We had the shooting in Las Vegas and North Korea. Everything's unstable right now. So, Kenny, as a real estate guy, does this concern you?
Sure, yeah, it concerns me. However, there is a way to prepare for that, as you know. We're in assets, so we're using other people's money or in the form of debt, and we're fixing the rate. So our rates are fixed on everything. Some is in the threes and some is in the fours. And so as that goes down and collapses, and people are fighting for everything, one of the things they're going to need, of course, is housing.
Right.
So we're in the housing business.
So what happened in Houston with that last one? What, Henry or Harvey? Or
Yeah.
what hurricane was that just?
Yeah, the Hurricane Harvey. We obviously experienced some of the damage here too. I have several properties in Houston, but what I really want you to understand is that we had 72,000 units affected. So essentially, what that means is that
That's in Houston.
yeah, just Houston only. So this is my second hurricane in Houston, by the way. I went through Hurricane Ike as well. I think that was about 2008 as well. So, but what that means is that there's 72,000 apartments that are now not livable in Houston. At least that's the way it was as of about a month ago. So I'm sure that that number's improved, but there's still going to be many, many units that are not going to be back into the marketplace. And so that creates a temporary supply of people or a demand because of that immediate loss. And so, as I was telling Robert yesterday, that tragedy actually helped my properties because people were scrambling and looking for places to go. So if you had any kind of vacancy at all in Houston, that's gone now. So you're basically, most of the properties in Houston are full.
So the difference between a 401k and real estate, does a 401k have insurance if this happens?
None. It has absolutely no insurance. In fact, one of the things Robert talks about a lot is the fact that risk, there's a big relationship between risk and control. If you have lots of control, then you'll have less risk. But if you have less control, the risk goes up. And in a 401k, you have virtually no control. You're either in it or you're out of it. And you're exposed to whatever collapses may come.
Right. So, Kenny, when this happens, or this happened with Houston, do you have insurance?
Yeah, we actually had that. We had a $5 million claim in 2008. We actually ended up fighting with the insurance company for a few years until, we got it, but we ended up getting it. But yes, and we lost 100 units in Hurricane Ike. Literally lost. A tornado took them, and we rebuilt it, and now they're brand new. And our rents are higher than because they're all brand new units. But
Right. And so people are moving back into Houston. A lot of them need a place to rent. So how many units did you lose in Houston this last one?
this last one we lost 90. We have about half of them back on track already.
They already rented.
Yeah,
The insurance covered.
correct.
In my lifetime, I've been through 5 hurricanes, 4 at sea and 1 in Hawaii. And thank God nothing that devastating ever happened. But the reason I bring this up is not to be mercenary, is they had this, the camera crews go rolling in, and here's this quite attractive young lady. She says, I'm getting out of Puerto Rico, I'm getting out of Puerto Rico. And the guy says, why are you getting out of here? She says, well, I used to work at this restaurant, and the restaurant's gone, and I can't find a job. There's no work to do. And I said, what we're talking about, not trying to criticize her and be mercenary about this whole thing. Man, that whole place is gone. She can't find work to do. There's more work on Puerto Rico now than there was just before the hurricane. And that's this whole point here, is when this crash happens, which we think will happen pretty soon, it's going to be the biggest opportunity for people. Now, this young lady, all she had to do was say, hey, I'm here to work. She could probably find a place to stay with somebody. And she could have got to work and worked and all this. She had more opportunity. She could have made a fortune there because every insurance company is looking for somebody to work. But because they've been trained, well, I'm a waitress or whatever I am, they miss out on opportunities. And that's what's going to happen here. This is going to be massive opportunity.
Thanks for taking part in today's live stream. We're interrupting the stream for just a minute to tell you about a special announcement. In honor of Robert's mission to elevate the financial well-being of humanity, we're offering everyone participating in today's event a free strategy session. Your free one-on-one confidential strategy session will give you a chance to talk to a member of the Rich Dad coaching team about your personal goals and how coaching can help guarantee your ultimate goal of getting out of the rat race. So use this time to take control of your financial future by clicking on one of the banners below for this exclusive offer. We'll get back to Robert in just a moment, but first, let's hear about the experience of a couple of rich dad success stories who took control of their financial future, and they've seen some amazing results.
Hi Robert, my name is Joseph Callan. It's a pleasure to be able to record a video that you will see. You're a bit of a hero to me because you put yourself out there so that other people can follow in your footsteps and create wealth for themselves. I love your books and I'm reading through them as fast as I can, and I also love your recommended list and I'm reading through them as fast as I can. I just want to start with a big thanks for the course and everything. It's been awesome, it's been a real blessing, so thank you. The course is fantastic. You couldn't ask for a better course if you wanted it. You learn at a good pace. The coaches are right there beside you to help you through any moments of doubt that you may have, and it's a real hands-on system that I haven't been a part of before, almost like a family. The information in the course is priceless. I've never been so wowed by information ever. It's practical, it makes sense, it's fantastic. He's my coach, he's been great. Champion, encouragement, whipcracker to get into my homework, but also to answer the deeper questions about how things are done and how it all comes together. Fantastic system, fantastic mentor. Anyone who is watching, the hope that this brings is worth the money alone. Not to mention the life changes for the better, the amazing support for your mentor as you go through the course, and the financial tips that you get along the way is totally worth it. The course is great, fantastic. You need to get in on this, and you need to change your financial future because only you can. Robert, thanks again for creating this course and for teaching others, and I'll see you on the other side.
What would you say about that young lady? She says, I can't find any work. I mean, you gotta be kidding me.
Well, I think what happens, my experience has been, when I've made the most money was during disasters of some sort or crashes. And I think what happens is most people run away from them, and and I think that they don't see it as an opportunity because there's big opportunities always, and that's actually when the real estate in my world, the real estate investors made the most money was when all those properties went back to the bank. So lots of people unfortunately lost them, but the smart investors went in and bought all those back because the banks don't want to own real estate. So that's just one example of people taking advantage of the crash.
Yeah. I mean, as a property manager in Houston, if somebody says, hey, I'm willing to work, you've been happy?
Yeah, for sure. Of course.
And really that's what we're getting at here, because when this happened here, 2000, when it came down in 2008, that's when you and I backed up the truck. We just started buying as much property. We borrowed money. We bought as much as we could. So the crash of 2008 was the best thing that ever happened to us. But because you've been trained to go to school and get a job, work hard, save money, and avoid disaster, I mean, you can't see the opportunity in front of you. And if we're correct, this is going to be a global financial hurricane. And many people will be destroyed. But it also could be the biggest opportunity for you, depending on your point of view. Any comments on that, Andy?
That's absolutely correct. There's a saying we have that we don't look at this chart as being a good thing or a bad thing. We just look at it as being what it is. There's every bit as much opportunity on the downside as the upside. But again, we come back to the people that work hard, save money, and put their money in actually started that by taking control of it in the crash of '08. They were in trouble. He went in and was able to get some what's called a warrant, which is like an option. And now he's the largest shareholder in that bank. So there are opportunities. On the long side, we call it the long side and we call it the short side, but people in a 401k never take advantage of the short side ever.
And somebody with an employee mentality, I want a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
It's not 9 to 5. You got massive problems. And money is made solving problems. So that's what we're talking about here. And I'll say it again, it was right here. You know, as it was peaking here. Remember that, Kenny? Everybody was buying real estate, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, if you guys remember, there was a lot of the banks were lending to people that probably shouldn't have borrowed, and they forgot that they might have to pay it back, and so what was happening is, I've been in the apartment business for a long time. We were renting to people, and we have credit that we run on every single person that comes in, and we were denying them rental because of their credit, and they were actually out buying homes and condominiums. And so, my partner and I, Ross,
It was just booming.
I said, there's a real problem here because, we wouldn't actually rent to these people because we're afraid they wouldn't be able to pay our rent, and they were actually getting mortgages. So that's the conversation you were talking about. I think that we saw that already starting, and when our rentals are competing with home buying for people that can't afford it, we knew that there was going to be a problem.
And what's interesting is right about 2005, 2007 over here, everybody was flipping houses. There were real estate investors. I remember I was going through Safeway, and the checkout clerk says, "Hey, give me a call. I'm a real estate advisor now." I'm going, "You got to be kidding me." I looked at her, and I didn't want to laugh. But she was serious. She says, "I can find some good deals for you." Well, it's easy to find a good deal when it's going up. But I already knew this was going to happen. Right?
Yeah. Oh, I'm seeing it right now, actually. I mean, this entire week I've been meeting with my peers, and a lot of them are positioning for exit right now, and people are rushing in right now. So what's happening is the crazy money, or I call it the dumb money, which is Wall Street money, because it's not really their money. It actually isn't. It's managed for, they're managing other people's money. It's OPM again. So they're investing heavy right now into my sector, but the guys that are in it are actually exiting.
Yeah, I remember it was Kenny and Ross, his partner, and Kim and I were going. It was frightening because people were leaving our apartment houses to buy houses they couldn't afford. They didn't even have a job.
Yeah.
But they were becoming, I'm going to buy this property in South Phoenix or wherever they were buying it, and it's $350,000. I qualified for it. I don't have a job, but it's going to be $600,000 next year.
Right.
And they're going to flip it and then retire rich. And so our vacancies were going up, right? People were leaving.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard to just hold, not panic. And then all of a sudden, it goes down really fast. So we're right there right now. But just to prove we knew what we were talking about, again, I saw this in 1971. Nixon took us off the gold standard. All this happened, big crash, big crash. So right here, I went on CNN with Wolf Blitzer, and I talked about the coming crash and that Lehman Brothers was going to go down. That was a gutsy crash because I was calling it 6 months ahead of the top. But here it is, just for those who may not believe what we know we're talking about here. This is me on CNN talking to Wolf Blitzer, calling for the downfall and the eradication of Lehman Brothers. Watch this video.
If people start pulling out of the market in their 50s, in their early 60s, and not having that sort of exposure, we are never going to get to a point where our money lasts as long as we need it to. We need to be participants in this system into our 70s and into our 80s, and then we need a plan for withdrawing those assets, just like we needed a plan for putting those assets in.
Yes, and you're putting those assets into those investment bankers that are in financial trouble today. And all I'm saying is, aren't these guys supposed to be the smartest guys on earth? And shouldn't we be careful who we take financial advice from, including the four of us on this panel?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of bad advice.
But Robert, you're really that worried about Goldman Sachs and Lehman Brothers?
Yes. I'm afraid the Federal Reserve will eventually or come close to bailing them out. That's what I'm concerned about. And a young lady who says the taxpayers are not in trouble, who's going to pay for that bailout again as the taxpayer?
Lehman Brothers says it plans to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection.
The collapse of Lehman Brothers.
Lehman Brothers collapsed.
Hundreds of bailed out banks are still struggling to repay taxpayers.
It's no secret that the California housing bubble has popped with hardships spread wide. Real estate expert Robert Kiyosaki predicted all of this would happen back in 2005, but most people didn't listen.
It's the biggest financial bubble in the history of the world.
Hopefully this wasn't inevitable, but we have had a big jump in foreclosure filings. Let me tell you a little about this. There are 650,000 homes in the United States in foreclosure right now.
U.S. foreclosure activity jumped 81% in 2008.
10 million people lost their homes to foreclosure and were forced out onto the streets.
You want to know what real estate's going to do? Look at jobs. We still have a bad job situation. So it's still a bad real estate situation.
Right. Real estate is only as valuable as there's jobs.
What made you write Conspiracy of the Rich?
It goes back to why don't we have financial education in schools?
Question: was the financial crisis a creation of a wicked conspiracy? A new online book, Conspiracy of the Rich, The 18 Rules of Money, exposes what author Robert Kiyosaki says is a twisted tale of how the rich control the world economy through, you name it, the Fed, Wall Street, your schools, and the government that supports these entities. Robert Kiyosaki is the author of the best-selling Rich Dad, Poor Dad series. His first book in the series has held a top spot on the New York Times bestseller list for 6 years running. And he joins us on the program today. Hello, Robert. What is this conspiracy theory? You mean it's a few people at the top handling all of us like puppets on a string? Say it isn't so.
Well, I wish it wasn't so, but I've been a student of this crisis since around 1983, and I could see it coming back in 1983. People that are following the old rules, such as work hard, save money, get out of debt, live below your means, and invest in a well-diversified portfolio of mutual funds, you're getting wiped out. Okay, so welcome back. It's not nice to be right, but in that 2008 crash, millions of people lost their jobs, they lost their homes, they lost everything. It was like Puerto Rico on steroids, worldwide. I remember I was in South Africa, and a lot of people who were flipping houses in South Africa lost everything, because they thought they were Donald Trump or something. By the way, we don't flip, do we? No. We hold for cash flow. That's what we do. We use it for tax and we use debt. So Andy, how would you advise people right now to possibly prepare for the old world? Let's say they're in a 401k. I mean, other than go to church and pray, what would you recommend they do?
We better go to a lot of church and say a lot of prayers. When we do the Rich Dad Radio show, people call in and they ask for advice constantly. I have $10,000. What should I do with it? What should I do with this? If I could make one invitation to you, please take some time to understand the difference between advice and education, because they're not the same thing. Financial knowledge is not about advice. If you look at
Or a tip.
or a tip, or a suggestion, or recommendation, or newsletter, and many people are going to ask, "What should I do with my money?" That is an entirely different context than saying, "I want to learn about money." This is a very dynamic and fluid situation. We may be right, we may be wrong. So the smart guy prepares for both. What am I going to do if it's going up? What do I do if it's going down?
But it's actually two things, okay? Rickard just said, I interviewed James Rickard, the road to ruin, the end of money and all these things. He's on the Rich Dad Radio show. Go to richdadradio.com and listen to my interview with Rickard. But it says there's two skills you got to have today. Number one, how you make your money, but most importantly, how you preserve your wealth. And both are important. How you make your money and how you preserve your wealth.
So the smartest thing is money and ignorance don't marry very well. If people don't know what they're doing, they're going to lose their cash.
And their job.
And everything.
Yeah.
And
If
so
you lose your job, you lose everything. Yeah.
the interesting thing is that if Kenny, I tell people all the time, if you were to strip people of their wealth, they would just keep doing the same thing and make more money. Their businesses aren't dependent on money. They're dependent on smarts and education. So that is really what we are here to do. Is we're not here to give advice. We're here to say, hey, if you care about money, you want to learn about it, get a coach. It talks about your team. Who are your teachers? Everyone thinks that being a rich dad advisor is about being a teacher. We do some of that. We travel a little bit and teach. But for me personally, I'll speak for myself. It's been an incredible learning experience being with Kenny and Blair and Darren and Josh and Lisa and all the advisors. We're students all the time, and we learn from other people. So I would say get a coach.
Can they learn to trade the market coming down?
100%.
Can somebody make more money when it comes down?
Yeah, well, you mentioned it usually goes down faster.
Yes.
So it creates an opportunity. There's investors that do very, very well. I like the short market.
Me too.
Very, very much. I enjoy short positions, but I can't just go out and say, oh, it's time to go short the market. There's some things to learn.
Practice.
Yeah, it's huge. And there's things to learn before a person can just go out and, you don't want to be that person at the checkout line saying, well, now I'm a stock investor either. It takes a lot of years, a lot of mistakes, a lot of practice, a lot of good mentors.
So we have Rich Dad coaching and Rich Dad's education, and we're not pitching the deal here. If you really want to not only learn how to make your money, but preserve your wealth, that's why you go to Rich Dad's coaching and Rich Dad's education and look at what you want to learn. You go to school, you're not going to learn this stuff, are you?
No.
They'll tell you to find a job, save money, which is ridiculous. Get out of debt, it's ridiculous, and invest in a 401k. Ridiculous. So that's why Rich Dad's coaching, Rich Dad's education. And I know you said, oh, you're just trying to sell me something. Yes, we are. But I want to ask you something like this. If this happens and you lose your job and you lose all your 401k, what are you going to do? You're going to start after you lose everything? It's like I tell you about that young woman who was a cocktail waitress or whatever she was. I'm going to look for a job. And she has more opportunity in front of her in the devastation, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, really, that's kind of our message here. You can sit there and go back to school and save money and get out of debt and invest in a 401k and buy a house. But I don't think that's going to save you if this happens. This is going to be the biggest collapse in world history. It's going to be Puerto Rico worldwide. Just think about that. What are you going to do if that happens?
This event is brought to you by Rich Dad Coaching. The rich didn't get where they are by doing the same things everyone else does. They have vision. They know when to take action. And they surround themselves with a strong team of mentors and advisors. Take the first step towards success and invest in yourself by getting your own Rich Dad coach. Your coach will work with you one-on-one to create and execute a personalized cash flow plan. They'll develop the skills you need and hold you accountable to your plan to achieve financial freedom. Get the financial education you need. Get a Rich Dad coach. To help you get started right away, click on any of the coaching banners below and claim a free strategy session from Rich Dad Coaching. This confidential session will allow you to understand how a Rich Dad coach can help you achieve financial freedom.
I can honestly say between your book and your webinar, the coaching, that we've completely changed our way of thinking and are now looking for more profitable aspects in life, such as real estate and businesses.
One thing that we really learned through your program is how to set goals. We used to set goals before, but it was set goals at the first of the year, throw them in a drawer, never look at them again, and next year you're in them and how important they are. I guess one other thing we've learned is the importance of using other people's time and other people's money to help you achieve your goals, because you can't do it alone, and you have to have a team, and you have to have all the people in place to help you do that. So we really appreciate the opportunity. Couldn't have done it without it, I believe. Thank you.
So Kenny, what are you going to do?
Well, we're going to continue to raise equity and debt and try to buy properties, once they crash.
It's a big opportunity.
Yeah, yeah. So we were already wealthy in 2005, 6, and 7, but the properties that we bought in 2008, 9, and 10 actually made us a lot more wealthy. And I think one of the things that I've seen in my short life is when the 401k came out, the financial services business kind of emerged. The financial planners, and I think people got comfortable with turning all their money over to other people.
Well, they were happy because the market kept going up.
Yeah, and they were just turning it over, just like Robert's example. And I think that's actually the mistake that people make is they go to work every day and they work so hard, and they turn it over and they maybe open their statements and maybe meet with them once a year. I don't know why anyone would ever do that. Why would you ever turn over all your savings to somebody else and then just not really manage it? It just makes no sense to me. But and so if you have an opportunity to do it, you should start to read these books. You should start to have coaches and mentors and start to understand this stuff.
Okay.
Because it's imperative if you're going to survive. You have to know these skills.
So just think about this. Now think of Puerto Rico. Let's say you wake up tomorrow morning. Your house is gone, your job is gone, your money is gone. What would you do? Would you see it as the worst thing that ever happened to you or the best thing? And if you're prepared now, you'll at least know what to do. Be ready for it. So that's why we have coaching and education, online programs ready for you. So let me just tell you what I'm doing right here is this. I'm preparing for a collapse of the U.S. dollar. Now that's very, very pessimistic, but it happens all over the world. For example, today, the richest country in South America is Venezuela. Their money is worth nothing. These crooked leaders, like our crooked leaders, they just rip the people of Venezuela off. So the question is, what happens if the U.S. dollar is worth nothing? The question is, what is real? Well, what happens if they shut the banks down? What happens if they shut the stock market down? What if they shut down the money markets? What happens if the bank you bank with, they don't bail it out? They basically do what Cyprus did and take your savings and say, oh, by the way, your savings are now equity in our bank, and you just lost all your savings. That's possibly what's going to happen right about here. So I'll give you an example. I have a friend. His name, he lives in South Africa, and he wondered what would happen if this was the U.S. dollar or the South African rand. So he said, what happens when a currency collapses? And so he's talking to his teacher, because he's still a student. He says, hey, just go next door to Zimbabwe. It took 3 billion Zimbabwe dollars to buy an egg. They kept printing more. The next week it was $6 billion to buy a Zimbabwe egg. So Philip Haslam is his name. The book is called When Money Destroys Nations. So he went next door to Zimbabwe. He wanted to find out what was real. And what he found out was real, the two things that were substitutes for money were tampons and toilet paper. Man, if you had a store of tampons and toilet paper, you were rich, because it was real. So that's how I want you to start thinking. So my house, I don't have tampons, I get my that. But I have toilet paper stacked to the ceiling. Because if that happens, everybody wants toilet paper, you know what I mean? But more importantly is that what we've been recommending at Rich Dad for years is, Kenny and I love real estate. Even if it gets wet, you can still fix it, it's still real. But also there's real gold and real silver. I do not touch ETFs. ETFs are fake money and fake investments. Stay away from them. Buy the real gold and real silver. Keep it outside the bank. Because if this happens, the weak banks will be taken out. They're not going to bail them out. They're going to just crash them. Another thing we've done at the Rich Dad Company, we've taken a year's worth of cash and we're holding it to make sure our employees will have a paycheck, even if we shut the company, even if the bank shut down for a year. We have enough cash to keep the company going. So these are some of the things we're preparing for right now. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. Well, at least buy some toilet paper. Definitely, I'll tell you what, you'll thank me later. This is real. Anything you want to say?
Well, I read that book, and yes, I spoke to him too, and of course we all studied it at Rich Dad years ago. And what I remember, there's a few things I remember from the book. One is everything moved to barter, and I think that's kind of where everything started. But that's essentially so you could, for milk, you could get some gas or food or depending on whatever you had. So real tangible assets. Chris Martinson talks a lot about that. Level 1, level 2, level 3. Level 1 being resources, level 2 being companies, and level 3 being paper. And that's the first thing that gets wiped out. So that's the same thing that happened. The other thing I remember is he did that analogy of the waterfalls, remember?
Yeah.
Where you jump off a waterfall and there's no going back, and then you have to jump to the next one and jump to the next one, and pretty soon it took, I think, 9 years.
Yeah, this is in South Africa, the Seven Sacred Falls or something. Once you start going down the line of printing money, this is the first jump. Here, you put people in phony stocks and fake stocks, next waterfall, and they just keep going.
Yeah, and we're seeing a lot of the same things in the U.S. with the debt. I mean, the U.S. is severely in debt, and all these bank bailouts and everything that we've had. Those things, anytime we add that much money into the system, it dilutes currency. That's what happens. And so, if you're diluting the currency or you're creating, there's more of it in the system, it's worth less. You have to have it in places that actually meet that. So you don't want to. That's why we talk about savings. You don't want that money in savings because if you have money in savings, like I always use this analogy, if you have $10,000 in savings last year, and the money gets eroded by just 5%, it only buys 95% this next year, and so on and so on and so on. So you have to be in vehicles that beat that. It has to be, otherwise you will be diluted.
Yeah, the worst thing you can do is save money. It's the loser's game, and save in a 401k, second loser's game. It's just being set up. They're being set up by our leaders. Andy, final words about a second?
Yeah, you mentioned Zimbabwe. I don't have any Zimbabwe currency, but you and I were in Paraguay recently, and I'm trying to remember, is it the Guarani? I think it's called the Guarani, and so I have some of that actually on me. And this is 100,000, and this would probably buy something worth about $20 or so. And so if I run out of toilet paper, I don't want to leave it, I guess. But it's an interesting thing because I've never seen a currency that went to, like you mentioned, 71. I've never seen a currency really go up in value after they started printing it out of nothing. And so what I would tell people to learn about, if you have an interest in protecting yourself and also opportunity, is to go out and learn what a short position is. Really take a class. Robert mentions if something's going down in value, one of the smartest things you can do is borrow it. So while a person might, if you think an ETF is going to disintegrate, well, don't go buy it, go borrow it. Learn a short position, and there's an opportunity on the other side if you're confident that way. The other thing that Marcy and I, along with this, that we've been doing this year is we've really been talking to each other about who's on our team and who our teachers are, who our mentors are. Our tax situations is something that Tom is on our team with. We have, people to help us protect our assets from lawsuits. And so these are all educational components. And I'm smart enough to learn all these things by myself. So I learned as much as I can. I'm studying precious metals as much as I can because I don't know a lot about it. But I'm really concerned about who's on my team as well, Robert, because I think we need to see more of this around the world. You know,
Yeah.
expenses going down.
The reason I could forecast that is when this happened in 1971, historically, everything that's printed goes to zero. And the U.S. dollar, I mean, if this is true, the U.S. dollar will be zero in a few more years. That means worth nothing. So ask yourself this, now what, if that's true, what am I going to do? And I was, Tom Wheelwright, we're just in Zimbabwe, and we met this young guy, and he says, my father, the Zimbabwe government took his ranch and kicked him off his ranch. So the family moved to England. The father says, I hate England, I better do something different. So he took up a foreign exchange, FX, it's called, how to trade the pound sterling versus the dollar, the yen, and the euro, and all this. And he moved back to Zimbabwe, became a multi-millionaire, standing on the street corner trading foreign exchange. But that's the power of education. So he satisfied two things. Number one, his profession, and number two, his wealth, just one course. So we at Rich Dad encourage financial education, but not that BS about saving money and working hard and getting out of debt and investing in the stock market, because those are the guys that are going to get wiped out if this happens. So final word on this, if you understand this, the Federal Reserve Bank has only two purposes for you and me. That's Janet Yellen and Bernanke and those guys. They only have two purposes. They want to encourage us to borrow and spend. They want us to borrow and spend. So they keep the interest rates low, so we borrow and we spend it. And what most foolish people do is they buy new cars, buy a bigger house, they go out to dinner on their credit cards and all that. So remember, the purpose of the Fed and all central banks is to get you to borrow and spend. If you're that stupid, you deserve to go broke. So that's why financial education is so vitally important. That's why these books and all this, and Rich Dad's Coaching and Rich Dad's Education. So in closing, I'll just say this much. Why do I know the dollar's probably going to go to zero? It's because today we have our debt's no longer in trillions, it's now in quadrillions. For every ounce of gold, real gold, there's 100 ounces of fake gold. For every stock, there's 100 fake stocks out there. They just print it. So eventually, I predict what's going to happen is to be able to pay off this 1.2 quadrillion in debt. A quadrillion is 1,000 trillion. To pay that off, they're going to have to devalue the dollar, so it's worth almost nothing. So they can pay that debt off with cheaper dollars. The reason Kenny and I borrow so much is because we're always going to pay it back with cheaper dollars. Right?
Well, yeah, so that $600 million that I owe right now in debt
It's going down.
it will go way down if they devalue the dollar. So essentially, that's why we're in debt. We're hedging the dollar.
And when the value of the dollar goes down, our real estate goes up. That's the game. That's called shorting it. Right?
And you can do it with anything. You can do it with the dollar. You can do it with anything that you feel is going down in value. You can borrow it and then return it when it's worth less.
So the dollar's going down because the Federal Reserve has to devalue the dollar because it can't pay off that debt. So if they make the dollar cheaper, the debt gets cheaper. Correct? But what that does, it makes our property or real assets go up, which could be gold, it could be anything goes up here. So don't be stupid, sports fans. Invest in your financial education. Don't get a job. Don't save money. Don't invest for the long term in the stock market, and love debt. But you have to be able to do that. First, you need financial education, and you have to get it smarter. Remember, as the dollar comes down, real assets go up. So a lot of people ask, what about politics? Donald Trump and I are friends and all this. And are you Republican or Democrat? And it really doesn't make any difference. You see, it's all a show. You know, Trump is a good man, but he's not Superman. Trump cannot stop this. It's coming anyway. So the most important thing, you know, it's not what they say on television. It's what the Republicans and Democrats say over lunch, because that's where the truth is told. And we'll never hear that. So we will never know. It's all a sideshow. There's, you know, Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama and Donald Trump. It's just entertainment. And just watch this. Michelle Obama's going to run against Trump. That's going to be such entertainment, isn't it?
Yeah, oh yeah. It'll be fun to watch.
It'll be fun to watch, right?
You want to watch it.
But it won't make any difference to this, because it's about the Federal Reserve Bank and the U.S. Treasury. That's where the game is played all over the world. Thank you all very much.
Now, stay tuned. We have one more special guest joining us now to share his predictions for the coming year as well. Based on feedback we've received about Robert's 2018 predictions, Robert has asked Rich Dad advisor and author Tom Wheelwright to share some of his expert predictions to help you prepare for the year ahead. Thanks for taking part in today's live stream. We're interrupting the stream for just a minute to tell you about a special announcement. In honor of Robert's mission to elevate the financial well-being of humanity, we're offering everyone participating in today's event a free strategy session. Your free one-on-one confidential strategy session will give you a chance to talk to a member of the Rich Dad coaching team about your personal goals and how coaching can help guarantee your ultimate goal of getting out of the rat race. So use this time to take control of your financial future by clicking on one of the banners below for this exclusive offer. We'll get back to Robert in just a moment, but first, let's hear about the experience of a couple of Rich Dad success stories who took control of their financial future, and they've seen some amazing results.
Are you considering Rich Dad coaching? I would definitely recommend it. Let's just say that by my third session with him, it completely paid for the entire investment. And that way exceeded my expectations. I also will say that I've hired them once before when I had a different objective, which was to have money work for me rather than me for my money. And I'm actually earning 12% return on my investment, which in this marketplace is almost unheard of. The reason I rehired him this time is because I'm now a single mom of a 2-year-old, and somehow I needed to figure out how to make money and spend time with my daughter. So I knew there was someone there that could definitely help me figure out how to get all that done. And I don't give out compliments easily. I've already built a business myself, but I do know that you can't create new results with the same level of thinking. So it is definitely not a question as far as will you get your return on investment. You will. It's more of a question of, are you willing to do the work that it requires on your part to partner with them and finally have the life or the quality of life you want? So I would say don't believe anything I just said. Test it. It is definitely worth it. Hire one of the many great Rich Dad coaches today. Good luck.
Hi, this is Tom Wheelwright, Rich Dad Advisor for Taxes and Wealth Strategy, and best-selling author of Tax-Free Wealth, of course. And I'm here to talk about what's going to happen in 2018 in the U.S., abroad, how's it going to affect investments. You know, here's the thing. Taxes are not fundamentally going to change. Whether there's tax reform in the U.S. or not, taxes won't fundamentally change. Remember, the taxes are fundamentally a series of incentives. And they're incentives for doing what the government wants you to do. And that's what tax-free wealth is all about. It's those incentives primarily for business owners and investors. So what you're going to see in 2018 really is more of the same. You're going to look at incentives. Now, will the incentives change? Absolutely. We will see tax changes. Every year we see tax changes. Could we have major tax reform? Probably not. We're in an election year, midterm election year in 2018, so it's pretty unlikely that we're going to have major tax reform, meaning that we're going to have a wholesale, revision of the Internal Revenue Code like we did in 1986. What we're more likely to see is smaller things, okay? We've had a lot of discussion, lots of things have happened with tax reform, in the last part of 2017, and so, we're gonna see some action. It's just how much action we're gonna see. What we do know is that globally, taxes will continue to play a major role in how the governments encourage people to invest. Okay, so what to look for is, what are those things that your government, wherever you are, it doesn't matter whether you're in, Moscow, Russia, and Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan, in, in Sao Paulo, Brazil, it just doesn't matter, because governments understand that you hate paying taxes, and so do everybody else in the country hates paying taxes. And so what will happen is you're going to continue to see the government use the tax law as a way to really manipulate the economy, really do things. I mean, if we have a big crash, what's going to happen? Well, if there's a big crash, what we're going to see is that taxes, governments are going to be, need more tax. So what are they likely to do? They'll likely raise rates, okay? Will they take away tax benefits for things like business and real estate? Probably not. I mean, the reality is they need business and real estate and other investments. They need professional investors in order for the economy to grow again. So they'll probably give more incentives for those people. Okay, what if the economy just takes off? Okay, well, guess what? Now there's a surplus of revenue. What's the government going to do? It's going to continue to promote those things that created that surplus of revenue. So question is, what can you do? And really, I think when it comes to a predictions video, the real question is, what am I looking for, and then what do I do about it? I think the most important thing is that you make sure that you're sitting down with your tax advisor, no matter what country you're in, you're sitting down with your tax advisor, and you're actually looking, following their tax advisors, letting you know what's going on, and, okay, what do I need to change in my life in order to get those tax incentives? So if the law changes, let's say, for example, the law changes in real estate, what do I need to do in order to take advantage of those law changes? Because sometimes law changes we think are bad for us, and sometimes we can turn them to our advantage. Okay, I mean, a really good example, back in 1986, 87, we had these passive loss rules that came in. Well, what did we do? We just turned it to our advantage. So it doesn't matter. That's the point. It doesn't matter what the government does. As long as you're watching it, and as long as you have good advisors around you, I mean, that's the thing that's so great about being a Rich Dad advisor is that, man, if I want to know about real estate, I'm talking to Ken McElroy. If I want to know about stocks and what's going on, I'm talking to Andy Tanner. If I want to know about business and the trends in business, I'm going to talk to Josh and Lisa Lannon or Darren. These are experts in their field. And so having that team around you, I think, is going to become more and more important as the world gets bigger. I mean, it really is getting bigger. I mean, it's getting bigger and smaller at the same time, right? More and more people, but more tied together. And as that happens, it's going to be important to understand what's going on in other countries, what's going on in your country, and to take advantage of those tax benefits whenever you can. And remember, every dollar you bring in has a tax consequence, and every dollar you spend could have a tax benefit to you. So you might as well follow the tax law, follow what's going on, sit down with your advisor, and then map out a plan of action, what I would call a tax strategy. Map out a tax strategy for the year. And now's the time to do it. Remember that January is the best time to be planning for reducing your taxes. No matter what your tax incentives are, no matter what the government's going to do, right now's the time, because every day you're losing time. Every day during the year, you've got an advantage, an opportunity to take advantage of those tax savings if you do what you need to do. If you behave like a big business owner, like a professional investor, and you actually take advantage of all of those incentives, all of those things that the government wants you to do so that you can partner with the government, the government can be a good partner for you, and you can reduce your taxes every single day, day in, day out. At the time of this taping, I mean, Trump had just released his tax plan. The Republicans have talked about exactly what they wanted to do as far as reducing the number of brackets and all the individual changes and the corporate tax changes. So, frankly, when you're viewing this, I have no idea what's happened. Okay? Here's what I expect is going to happen at some point. It either happens by the beginning of 2018, or it's going to happen in 2018. Here's what we're going to get. Here's what we're not going to get. we will have corporate tax change. Okay, we'll have a reduction in corporate tax rates. We will have an amnesty for big companies, especially to bring money back into the U.S. and pay tax at a lower rate. That will actually pay for the corporate tax change. We're going to have probably go to a territorial tax for corporations. Now, here's what we don't know. What we don't know is, and what I don't know is this going to apply to flow-through entities? Now, by flow-through entities, what I mean is partnerships, S corporations, any kind of business that is not a quote-unquote C corporation, okay, so a regular taxable corporation. We don't know what's going to happen there. There's been a proposal, as of now, for a 25% tax rate, maximum tax rate on that, okay, and a 20% maximum tax rate on corporations. Will that happen? I don't know. I mean, even if it hasn't happened by the time you see this, I don't know if that's going to happen. It's a really big dollar, okay? And it's probably actually not needed as far as competition vis-a-vis the rest of the world. What we really need, okay, so whether this is a prediction or not, and I'm just telling you what my opinion of what we need, and I think it's pretty clear. And by the way, Paul Ryan, Speaker of the House, understands this, and I think that the tax people in Congress and the Senate understand this. What we really need is value-added tax. Okay, the U.S. is one of the few countries around the world that doesn't have a value-added tax. We have local sales taxes, but we have no value-added tax. And what happens with that is that means that when another country, like Airbus, for example, in France, they ship a plane over here to the U.S., there's an exemption of value-added tax, okay, and they don't, typically, they may not even have to pay income tax here, okay, and they have a lower tax rate in France. But where, if Boeing sends a plane, ships a plane over to France, right, then there's a 22% value-added tax on top of paying U.S. income, the higher U.S. income tax or French income tax. So there's a huge disparity between countries, between the U.S. and all of its trading partners. A huge disparity, because all of its trading partners, Mexico, China, Canada, Europe, the UK, all of these countries have a value-added tax, which means that when we ship to them, we pay that value-added tax. When they ship to us, they don't. Okay, so that would actually be raise a huge amount of revenue. The question is whether Congress can actually get their act together to get any of this done. What I don't expect to happen is major personal tax reform. Could we get a reduction of rates and maybe an increase in the personal exemption? Things that they've talked about. Yeah, we might be able to get some of that. But already, I mean, even the very first day that Trump released his plan, there was pushback from New Jersey, New York, California about not being able to deduct state taxes. Okay, so that's one of the proposals. The state taxes, that's one of the ways to raise revenue. It actually makes no sense to allow state tax deduction, because now what you're doing is subsidizing the big states by the states that have high tax rates. It's the states that have low or no tax rates, like Texas and Arizona, that have very low tax rates, and Florida subsidizing the high tax states. Well, it doesn't make sense, but that doesn't mean that the states, and their congressmen and their senators, they are after keeping these benefits. So it's very hard to take away a benefit. Very, very difficult to take away a benefit, even if it means lower taxes overall, because people like their benefits. Now, here's a good point to remember. Remember, we all like our benefits. So these aren't loopholes. These aren't mistakes. These are things that the government intentionally has done, and will the government intentionally change them? It won't be a mistake if they change. They will change. If they change, they're on purpose, but they're probably a revenue raiser. So the question is, will we get major tax reform from a personal standpoint? Will we lose major, tax benefits? And the answer is probably not. Will there be this great base broadening of the income tax in the U.S. like there was in 1986? Probably not. But remember, in 1986, we had that big base broadening. That did happen only because, by the way, and I was back in Washington at the time following that legislation up on the Hill, only because we had an extraordinarily popular president in President Reagan, who had won a landslide victory in 1984, and we had both houses of Congress very much in support of the president. Well, right now, neither house of Congress is in support of our president, okay? and the Democrats will do anything they can, even if it's a good thing. They'll do anything they can to defeat the Republicans because they want to regain control of the House and the Senate in 2018. That is their goal. Understand, the singular goal of your representatives in Congress is to get control, whichever party you belong to, whichever party it is. They want control of the House. They want control of the Senate. At least control of the Senate, because if they have control of the Senate, they can stymie everything else that happens for the next at least 2 years, and maybe even 6 years. I mean, that's what happened. If you remember, under Obama, he got a lot of things passed in the first 2 years. The Republicans gained control of the House, and all of a sudden it came to a screeching halt, and nothing happened for the next 6 years. Okay, and that's what's going to happen. Okay, from a tax standpoint, will we say wholesale tax reform? Probably not, unless something dramatic happens. Trump becomes a wildly successful president in some way. Let's say the economy were just to absolutely boom under Trump, and then he gets reelected in a landslide in 2020. Then, if that were to happen, could we get tax reform the next term? I think so, but it's not going to happen this term. So I would be careful to worry about tax reform. Don't worry so much about it, but do think about the things that probably will happen if they haven't already, and that is the lowering of the corporate tax rates. That is, will they lower the rates for the quote unquote flow-through entities, which is most small businesses or S-quadrant businesses? Will they do that? That's a big question. Okay, that's one that I think is kind of on the borderline of whether they'll do it or not. So I would watch that one real closely, because if they don't, a lot of you have your businesses in an S corporation, which is a flow-through. You may want to be considering, do I switch to a C corporation? If I've got a 39% rate in an S corporation and a 20% rate in a C corporation, boy, I want to do some planning to make sure I get advantage of that 20% rate somehow, while still leaving me open to the idea of having that S corporation. So what I want to be clear on is, none of this is, it's fluid. All of this is fluid. None of this is set. None of this is absolutely going to happen. What we know for sure is going to happen is things will change, and we need to watch. And we need to watch the trends. We need to watch what kinds of items keep coming up, because those are the things that eventually will happen.
Thanks for joining us today. Now, I know there's been a lot of great information to process right now, so let me leave you with a few parting words. One of the best things you can do today is to get educated by people who are active, successful investors, who are experienced in helping people just like you achieve their biggest goals. Aligning yourself with the experienced Rich Dad coaching team will enable you to minimize your risks, accelerate your learning, and help guarantee your profits. Robert and the other members of the Rich Dad team produce massive amounts of cash flow from investing because they have the financial education and experience required to develop successful investing plans for the current market. They also have the motivation and dedication necessary to follow through and see those plans to completion. Now, a big secret to their success is the fact that they didn't do it alone. They used an experienced coach who helped them achieve their goals faster and easier than they could have done on their own. You can help guarantee your success as an investor with an experienced Rich Dad coach. Our coaches will work with you one-on-one to create and execute a personalized cash flow plan. They'll help you develop the skills you need, and they'll hold you accountable to your plan to achieve financial freedom. Look, most people never have the chance to work with someone who really knows the ins and outs of investing, someone who will help you avoid costly mistakes and maximize your cash flow. Your experienced Rich Dad coach can help you get the financial education you need. However, the determination to succeed has to be from you. Now is the time you must decide. Is what you currently have all you ever wanted? Or are you ready to be successful and live the life you really deserve? Just click on a banner below to take advantage of this exclusive live stream offer. As you can imagine, Robert's personal coaching staff can only accommodate a limited number of free one-on-one personal strategy sessions. So this offer is only available on a first-come, first-served basis. When we reach that limit, we'll be forced to pull down the offer. Click the banner below right now for your free strategy session. Don't miss this limited time opportunity to dramatically improve your life and the lives of your family. You owe it to yourself and your family to see what's possible. On behalf of everyone here at Rich Dad Coaching, I want to thank you again for joining us today. Take control of your financial future right now. Achieve the success you really deserve.